Tonight, we continue our coverage of this year's NBA playoffs. Tonight, we give our analysis of the Eastern Conference Finals as the Boston Celtics have swept the Indiana Pacers in 3 out of the 4 games. It was competitive, but the Celtics made all the key plays down the stretch to take the series. They advance to their 23rd NBA Finals. In franchise history, they await their opponent in the Western Conference Finals. The Dallas Mavericks lead their series against the Minnesota Timberwolves 3-9. Can Minnesota force it back to Game 5 on their home floor? It's 1 game at a time. For Minnesota, 1 more loss, they're eliminated. It's showtime.
Good up to the court, talking all that is sport, breaking down the latest news, scores, and more. Welcome to our Nation Sports Show. Oh yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. You wanted the best when it comes to the world of sports. You got the best. We are live once again for another edition of our Nation Sports Show here on the World Wide Web, here on YouTube. I am your host for this evening, Stephen Wyand. And before I get to my co-host for right now, joining me right now on the show tonight, we have to plug the social media platforms. Up first on Twitter, or X as they call it these days, at @ON_sports show, Facebook.com/Our Nation Sports Show, and on YouTube, where we are live right now at YouTube.com/Our Nation Sports Show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. If you have any family and friends who love the world of sports, you won't be disappointed, because we love our sports and all of that good stuff. And before you know it, the NFL will be back in the fall and all of that good stuff. And we're hot and heavy right now with our NBA coverage still and all of that good stuff. And also don't forget to follow the Nation's Corner on Twitter at Nation's Corner, Facebook.com/Nation's Corner, and on YouTube.com/The Nation's Corner. Don't forget to check out the guys and gal every single Saturday as they recap the world of professional wrestling, especially from this past weekend, Double or Nothing in Sin City in Las Vegas, Nevada. All good things professional wrestling. And speaking of all good things, joining me right here tonight on the show tonight, one of my esteemed co-hosts, one of my good friends, one of my brothers from another mother. He is a San Francisco 49ers fan. He is the leader of the Bang Bang Niner gang. He is also a Golden State Warriors fan. And he's also a fan of all good things rap and old school hip hop, especially a big Eminem fan. And Eminem's new record comes out this Friday. He is my good brother, KR, Kevin Roy. What's going on, man?
What's going on, Steven? What's going on, everybody? I thought I'd come on the show here tonight, about 45 minutes or so, and talk about these conference finals and how up and down and sweeps, it seems like. Talk about the broomsticks, I guess. But other than that, yeah, good to be back on the show for a little while, and good to talk sports with everybody out there, and you too, Steven, and let's roll.
Let's roll with it. And joining us in a little bit will be Joey. He's going to be running a little bit late, and he'll be on with us here sometime tonight. And Ezra will not be with us here tonight. He's dealing with some family matters and all of that stuff. And He'll be back on with us next week, but we are here tonight and we are ready. And a lot of things are happening right now, especially with the NBA conference finals. I mean, we'll start with the obvious one, and that is the Boston Celtics took out the Bruins to the Indiana Pacers, the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. And like I said at the top of the hour on the intro, that 3 out of the 4 games were competitive. And Kev, I mean, I cannot remember any conference finals in the last 20, 25 years or so where there's been a clean sweep where the majority of the games have been this competitive. Because, yeah, there was a big double-digit lead by Indiana in Game 3, but the Celtics got it down, and then it stayed competitive the rest of the way. But in 3 out of these 4 games, with the exception of Game 2, it was pretty close. And Indiana did not get it done. And we'll start with Game 1. I mean, in Game 1, Indiana was up. They were up by 3. Let's say it's in the fourth quarter. And their win probability was a 97% win probability to win the game. They were up by 3 with 10 seconds to go, and they fumbled the inbounds pass. And Kev, as you were watching this game unfold and Indiana was turning the ball over, they turned the ball over 22 times during that game. As you're seeing these turnovers happen, and they missed a lot of opportunities to put the Celtics away on their home floor and steal that first game, what are your thoughts going into Game 1 and how Indiana blew that opportunity?
Well, first, let me start off by saying the only game that was really outright won by the Boston Celtics was Game 2, where they essentially had it hand start to finish. It was still competitive, but they basically they didn't have any trouble with them. But Game 1, I'm not gonna blame it all on the turnovers. Yes, the costly turnover is what hurt them, but the 22 turnovers. Listen. When you're a fast-paced offense, get the hell up and down the floor, it's like the old saying, you live by the gun, you die by the gun. You're living with that pace, and you sometimes, just like we've seen with my Golden State Warriors in years past, they like the tempo so fast-paced that turnovers happen. Like, stuff gets rushed, the ball goes everywhere, you're throwing the ball out in the harm's way, and it ends up getting turned over, going out of bounds, all kind of crazy stuff. But I will not say that the turnovers per se killed them, because that's been a high turnover rate team anyway. But what killed them basically was coaching and the plays at the end, crunch time plays. Because listen, from a basketball mind, why are you letting Jaylen Brown get off that 3 to tie the game? Let's forget about the turnovers. Let's worry about the play that sent it to overtime. Why are you letting Jaylen Brown get the 3 off? When the ball leaves the passer's hands out of bounds, you should be fouling. Put them on the line for 2 shots. You know why? It slowly dwindles the time down, and you're up 3. They get 2 shots. They make 2. You're still up 1. You get a chance to get the ball, go to the free throw line, make it a free throw contest. Don't give them a chance to tie the game. But you know what? They didn't, and Jaylen Brown makes a big-time crunch time play, as we'll see later in the series. Jaylen Brown makes it, goes to overtime. Jaylen Brown also takes over, and that's it. Now, what I will say, if coaching was right and they did what they were supposed to do, going into Game 4 last night, Boston, the Pacers really could have been up 2-1. Literally. They had Game 3 and they just choked it away. And then again, it come down to the last 2 minutes where Indiana, lacking that number 2 option on offense, as we'll talk about in the other series, you got one guy, which not even in Game 3 because Halliburton was out, but you're basically finding any kind of offense you got. You don't got that closer. Boston has 2 closers, as we'll talk about in the other series. And when you got 2 closers like that and you got playmakers around them, they're going to make the plays in the crunch time, and you're going to come up short. And that's what happened. Indiana couldn't get nothing in the end. Bad coaching again. Rick Carlisle, a dumb turnover. Let Nemard, who balled his ass off, by the way, much respect to that young kid, but he balls his ass off and he don't have no experience, and he dribbles the ball right to one of the most elite players in the game on defense, and Drew Holiday, and turns it over. That can't happen. Rick Carlisle, call a timeout. get a playoff, get an offensive set going. You got a chance to win it in the game, and you don't, and it screws you in the butt. Same way in game one. Dude, foul Jaylen Brown.
Foul.
Foul. I mean,
Pascal Siakam put his hands behind his back. What are you doing? Foul.
I get Rick Carlisle is a champion coach in Dallas that 1 year. I get it. But that doesn't mean he's a very good coach. And that's why we're saying what we're saying. He literally fumbled the game from a coaching's perspective against the Boston Celtics. And
game 3.
I've never seen a series where Indiana literally had a lead in 3 of the 4 games as much as double figures at times. 18, you talk about game 3. I think last night it went up to 8-10 points. Game 1, it went up to 7-9 points, and they just lose. Not only is it coaching, they just don't have a player like a Kevin Durant, like a offensive-minded guy who can go out, get me the ball, get out of the way, let me get a bucket, let's go back and forth. They don't have that, and that's what's hurting them. But I tell you what, Indiana's future is really bright. Like, I feel
Very
like if they
bright.
free agent, I mean, listen, you're holding this man Donovan Mitchell hostage over there in Cleveland. Why don't you just let him go? And if he joins the Indiana Pacers, you got an offensive weapon. Same way for Minnesota that we'll talk to later. If you get an offensive weapon like that who can get their own shot, they're set. They're going to be good. So if Indiana just find that one closer type player who can get me the ball, get a bucket, score 2 points, get to the line, something, they got a bright future. But Boston, I might sound like a hater, but I don't really care. This has got to be one of the flukiest paths to the NBA Finals. NBA champion has, not NBA, Eastern Conference champion team has ever went through because of all the injuries. And I'm not making excuses. As my Warriors have seen, we won due to injuries with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, and we lost due to injuries and Kevin Durant that year. I understand it happens, but it doesn't take away the asterisk behind your finals run because you play a Heat team with no Jimmy Butler who just got banged up. You don't even see the Sixers because Joel Embiid's been banged up all year. You don't see the Knicks because the Knicks obviously got a whole fucking infirmary in New York. Spike Lee might as well go ahead and own the infirmary because it's the whole starting 5 of the New York Knicks were all down before it's all said and done in Game 7. The Bucks didn't have Dame and Giannis particularly. Like, it literally was nobody's in the Eastern Conference. And you know what? Boston still managed to find themselves losing 2 games in that perspective. How? To be honest, on paper, with the injuries and the asterisks, Boston should have won every game by 20. But somehow they dig themselves in a hole early on, too much selfish one-on-one play, and they have to come in the stretch and make good plays. And here's all I'm saying about that. Good job. You did that against bad teams. You can't do that against teams coming out of the West. If you dig yourself in a hole to the presumed Dallas Mavericks, you're not digging your way out of it. Luka's going to make sure you don't dig your way out of it. Same with the Timberwolves. If somehow they win 4 straight, which you got to be smoking crack to think that happens. But if they did, Anthony Edwards is not going to let you dig your way out of it. So, Boston, you better get your shit straight.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us right here, right now, better late than never, JT Joey Thornton. What's going on, brother?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Sorry I'm a little bit late. Had some stuff to take care of real quick, but I'm here to talk some NBA playoffs, a little bit of NFL, and of course a little bit of Major League Baseball. So, where do we leave off at?
Well, I was just talking about the asterisk that the Boston Celtics have in their finals run. On paper, they should be beating everybody by 20-plus points. And they find their way to dig their own grave and have to dig their way out of it. 3 games out of 4 against the Indiana Pacers.
Well, yeah, and for those of y'all that don't know what an asterisk might be, an asterisk is a small little space, but it just seems like for Boston, it seems like it is a big old gigantic piece of pizza pie. Because that's what it seems like. Because this is no doubt the easiest, and I mean the easiest run for any team to make it to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, this is what we call a Mickey Mouse run.
And I tell you what, right here, right now, I think the Boston Celtics theme song should be Guns N' Roses' song, It's So Easy. Because it was so damn easy, so fucking easy for them to get to the NBA Finals with all of these injuries that they had.
The problem is they made it hard on themselves. I mean,
Exactly.
They've only lost 2 postseason games since the whole entire postseason, but yet they've won, what is it now, 5 straight games on the road? And Steven, what was the thing I was telling you about Boston? It seems like every year, whenever Boston goes into the playoffs, it seems like they have more success on the road than at home, and that's really saying something.
It is, especially in game 3 when they're down by 18. I mean, like they're thinking, okay, we got 2 games. We stole 1 at home. We blew them out in game 2. In game 3, they're down by 18. And they got back in the game and they were making shots and making defensive plays and they got back in the game. And then they had Indiana by the bullhorns and they took over the rest of the game.
Yep.
And they ended up pulling away with that steal by Holiday, which was crazy. Grand Theft Auto style, baby. And Drew Holiday showing his true competitiveness on why they brought him to Boston.
I just don't get it. I've never seen a team struggle at home and then go on the road and look like a completely different team. I mean, we go back to the first round.
It's the opposite, Kev, because the Warriors
to a bunch of Steph Curry and Klay Thompsons out there shooting the ball in game 2, and they blew Boston out. Game 2 against the Cavaliers, they turned into a bunch of Michael Jordans and dominated Boston on their home court. I remember, Steven, you remember a time when it was Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, the Celtics, back in the day. They didn't do this in the Garden. They dominated.
They dominated at home.
Right. The only person who ran roughshod in the Garden was LeBron James in Game 6 of the 2012 Eastern Conference Finals. That was it. They basically had that place on, like, you couldn't do nothing. But nowadays, hell, Golden State celebrated a whole championship ceremony on their home court.
Yep.
I mean, Jesus Christ, they literally have been struggling at home the last 4 years, and
then last night in game 4, again, it was competitive throughout the entire game, and then Indiana, just like in game. And the Celtics go on to 7-0 run in the 4th quarter to take game 4, to take the series in 4. And it's amazing how Rick Carlisle in 3 out of the 4 games got out-coached and just was overthinking the game and not using the freaking timeouts that he had in his back pocket.
He definitely piss poor coach. But I'm sorry, Boston, but you cannot do this in the finals. You let Neymar look like Luka Doncic. What do you think they're going to make Luka Doncic look like?
You give Luka any opportunity, he's going to kill you.
Same thing for Kyrie.
Kyrie.
And speaking of which, more than likely, Kyrie, Luka, and the Mavericks are going to be moving on to the NBA Finals. And what does that mean? That means that Kyrie is going to be going back to Boston.
Yep. And before we go any further, what's going on, William? How you doing, sir?
What's going on, William?
And William says here in the chat, yet again, the Celtics beat another team without their best player.
Pretty much.
That's the problem. Like, how are you? They don't got Halliburton, and you're making Neymar look like he's damn Luka Doncic before Luka Doncic. No disrespect to the kid, he balled his ass off, and I'm sure he's going to be a key part of the Indiana Pacers' future. Great future they got, by the way. But they're just a young team who just assembled, and you like, I would hate to see what Boston did if they had played a healthy Knicks squad. Like, what would Jalen Brunson do to that team? Jalen Brunson arguably was the best player in the Eastern Conference this season. I don't want to know what he would have done to the Celtics, but that's nonetheless, the injury sucks. It happens, part of the game.
Golden State went through this as well when they won one of their championships. I forget what year it was, but their path one of the years was easy because in the Western Conference that one year, everybody was dropping like flies. And what do? You beat everybody who's in front of you, and they did.
The only difference is they actually. We'll see if the difference is Golden State actually took care of business on the final stage, though, when they were healthy. Let's see if Boston can do that with a healthy, presumably Mavs team. That's going to be the key.
And that'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, but I have the perfect scenario as to why these games are going the way they are. And this is not just the conference finals for this year, but this is for any year before this year. See, this is the one thing, and we see it all the time. You have a team that completely comes out of nowhere, whether the team that they beat, which is a higher seed, loses their best player or not. You have these teams get a hot hand thinking that nobody's going to beat them, thinking that everybody's going to be behind them as the Cinderella underdog, but yet they go out and struggle when their lives depend on it because of one simple little thing. And I like to call it GEM, and that stands for game-ending mistakes. Because we have seen it in all 7 games of these Eastern Conference Finals. All 7 of these games up to this point have been competitive. They have been extremely competitive. But the fact of the matter is that Indiana and Minnesota, in this case, have committed so many game-ending mistakes, it has cost them in the long run. Because I can guarantee you, if Indiana and Minnesota were not committing these game-ending mistakes, we would be looking at a pair of 2-2 or possibly 3-2 series. Hands down.
Exactly. And also as well, what's also kind of interesting for the NBA is, let's just say if Dallas closes out the series tonight, there is no moving the NBA Finals up this week. None.
Nope.
They can't move it. So if you're the NBA, you would have wanted these series to go at least 6 or 7 games, because it makes the final schedule starting on June 6th easier to digest.
Yeah, I'm about to say that's over a week away, so that's giving Boston over a week to practice. And if Dallas can finish out the Timberwolves tonight, then they'll have over a week to practice before they start.
If you're
playing
Dallas, you
the
can't
finals.
give the Minnesota Timberwolves just a smidge of life. You can't.
Nope.
You cannot.
Nope. We seen it
And-
last year. Miami gave Boston one breath, and they won one, and they went back home and actually looked good at home for the first time. And then they went back home in Game 6 and
on the road in Game 6, and they
lucky ass
stole
bounce.
that game on a lucky.
Very ironic tip in to win the game, and then what do you know? We have an epic Game 7. And honestly, Miami kind of looked out because obviously we know Jason Tatum sprained his ankle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you are the Timberwolves, and we're going to get to that series right now, again, congratulations to the Celtics for advancing to their 23rd NBA Finals in franchise history. And they are looking to get their 18th NBA championship in franchise history. And the finals again start at TD Bank North Garden on June 6th next week in Boston. They will be facing the winner of this series in the Western Conference Finals between the Mavericks or the Timberwolves. And right now, the Dallas Mavericks, just like the Celtics, heading into Game 4, are up 3-0 against Minnesota. And yet again, except with Game 2 in the Celtics and Pacers series, in all 3 games, they have been competitive. All 3 games have been competitive. And the turnovers, the lack of execution by the Timberwolves has caused them to get to where they are right now in this 3-0 hole. And Kev, you and I have texted about this, and Joey, you and I have talked about this. It is the experience of one Jason Kidd who has been in these situations, first as a player and now as a head coach, and Kyrie Irving, who has the experience of being in multiple NBA Finals with LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And also Luka has the experience of going to the conference finals a couple years ago and all of that good stuff. So when you look at the big horizon, the Mavericks should win tonight. They should. But the big contributing factor.
Will they?
The big contributing factor is Luka and Kyrie are on another level right now.
They are. But before we get too deep into this, I just have one little question, and Steven, I brought this up with you whenever we were on the phone the other day. I simply asked one little simple question. Knowing how hot of a sharpshooter Luka Doncic is, why would you not have a not one, not two, not three, but four-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner, defensive player, not offensive, defensive player of the year award winner, and Rudy Gobert not contest that game-winning three-pointer in Game 2? Answer me that, because I don't get it.
And Kevin brought up a great point too before he continues. He brought up a great point saying that why are we constantly giving the defensive player of the year awards to specifically guys who only block shots? Ooh, you can block shots. Oh, good for you. What do you want, a trophy?
Okay, before I ran on this, I just want to say on that particular play, like Charles Barkley had said, it really is a strategic error. Like, if your plan was to switch everything, then get his ass off the floor and put in a smaller guard who can switch and stick with Luka. That's first things first. Second of all, run his ass off the three-point line. I mean, good God, you know he wants to go to that step back. That's in his DNA. It's in the scouting report. That is a coaching error. You run him off the line, force him to take a layup, because worst case worst, the game's tied, you go to overtime, you got a chance to win it. You let them get the three off to a deadly clutch shooter, and you paid the price. And again, Rudy Gobert, not a defensive player of the year, all because he's the last line of defense and he's 7'3" and blocks shots. Whoopee freaking do. Because I promise you, Luka even said it in the post game. He said, that's the matchup I wanted. I wanted Gobert. I might be slow, but I'm faster than his ass. And he basically is telling what everybody in the world is thinking. Rudy Gobert cannot stick with nobody. I promise you, if they were playing other defensive player of the year, if they were playing Kawhi Leonard, how many times do you think Luka's going to say, no, I want Kawhi on me? No, he's not. How many times do you think he's going to say, I want Draymond Green to defend me? No, he's not. How many times do you think he's going to say, I want Dennis Rodman to? No, he's not.
Kevin Garnett.
I want Ben Wallace to. Kevin Garnett. No, he's not. Rudy Gobert is proving that the voting is a joke. It's a fucking joke. I mean, Jesus, like, all he does is block shots. Like, give me a defender like a Draymond Green who can block shots, who can guard on the perimeter off the switch, who can protect the rim, who can guard down low, who can hustle for the ball. Give me players like that, like a Derek White. Why wasn't he in it? He's literally one of the best players defensively at deflecting balls, deflecting passes, taking charges. That doesn't show up on the stat sheet, so he doesn't get voted. That's first things first. I'm glad I'm done ranting about that. But for the Dallas Mavericks, their biggest key and their turnaround for their team, y'all talk about Luka and Kyrie, which is absolutely true. They're tearing it up right now, both of them. Kyrie basically been dead for the first two series, and he finally came alive. Like, he was so passive in the first two series. He was averaging 1.8 points in the first quarter. Like, he was not shooting, not trying to. Something lit a fire under his ass, and he is torching it this series, as well as Luka Doncic. But the big key for Dallas is when they made that midseason acquisition of Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington. Like, that was the biggest acquisition, because PJ has been a great defensive player for them. Great. And so far, Daniel Gafford as well, as a shot blocker. Probably one of the best shot blockers in the game. Better than Rudy Gobert. I've watched this series. And
it's like William said here in the chat, Gobert is overrated.
He's always been. Draymond's been screaming this for 4 years, and everybody just laughs at him. Like, you talk your French about we. No, your ass was getting cooked. You, not we. Karl Anthony Towns has been playing defense. Edwards has been playing defense. Same in the Denver series. It was you. You couldn't guard Jokic. Jokic was slamming you around. He was slinging you like a rag doll. And you're supposed to be defensive player of the year?
Yeah, see,
cut it out now.
You see, and that is the main difference between the Minnesota team that we saw in the Denver series versus the Minnesota team we're seeing now. In that Denver series, everybody, and yes, that's including Gobert on some occasions, but Gobert, Edwards, Anthony Towns, Naz Reid, they were all pulling their weight. In this series, it almost seems like it's Anthony Edwards pulling his own weight.
I don't even agree with that.
And he cannot pull the weight of 5 teammates at once. That's just too much of Anthony Edwards.
I disagree with that on the case that, and it ain't his fault. Anthony Edwards is gas. He can't do nothing. He's just settling for jacking up threes, and I get it. Like, he's tired. He needs help. He was worn out. He just played 7 games against the defending champs. He just had to go out there and guard Jamal Murray for 48 minutes in Game 7. He mistakenly, which, I mean, he's got to learn as a young fella, you can't go call Kyrie Irving out like that. And that's again, I'll get into a second, but you can't call Kyrie Irving out. I want Kyrie. You can't do that. As your team's best offensive player, as a basketball perspective, you can't want to go guard the team's best player. I mean, you got to save your legs for the offensive end of the floor. But like I was saying, Dallas, where they changed their team around when they got Gafford and PJ Washington midseason. The reason why, after the All-Star break, Dallas ranked number 1 in the NBA in defense, thanks to Daniel Gafford blocking shots and PJ Washington playing the other team's best perimeter player on defense. They're making plays. Like, they're the best defensive team other than the Timberwolves after the All-Star break, number 1. And we're seeing it. Like, and Luka, he's getting to where he gets in the paint, and Gafford is also playing that JaVale McGee type role where he's gonna catch an alley every time.
And so is Derek Lively.
Yep. So I love Derek Lively, former Duke grad. I love him. I've loved him when he came in the league. I thought that was a good pickup, 7-footer. Him, Gafford, and eventually Max Kleber that can stretch the floor and shoot. I like their lineup. I think they're doing great. But here's the problem with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Just like the Pacers, you got to have an offensive player who can give Anthony Edwards a rest. We watch it with Dallas when Luka's gassed. You can see him in the fourth quarter. Luka's hands on his knees. You know who's got the ball? Kyrie Irving. You know who's doing work? Kyrie Irving. Kyrie's taking him to school, scoring a bucket. Luka's on the wing, just resting. Got his hands on his knees, just taking a breath, catching his breath, breathing, and he's ready to roll. Who does the Timberwolves have to do that? Anthony Edwards is gas, and they're still, hey, go score. We don't got nobody else. Because apparently, Karl Anthony Towns, they call him Cat, but right now he looks more like Hello Kitty to me because he this clown called himself the best big man shooter to ever touch the court. I mean,
oh, Lord.
In the words of Stephen A., good God Almighty. I mean, Jesus. You call yourself the best shooting big man.
That's what's funny to me, Kevin. He said, I'm the best big man shooting in the NBA. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
Is better than you.
Kevin Love will shoot your dots between your eyes out. You're right. You know that Dirk Nowitzki would shoot your eyes out. And then you come out in the Western Conference Finals, the biggest stage you've ever been on, and you shoot like Shaq from the free throw line. I mean, 3 of 34. Why?
Yes.
Here's the bigger question. Why are you still shooting it? You are horrible and you're still jacking up threes. And the biggest, oh my fucking God moment, Dallas decided to go small. They didn't have Gafford on the court. They didn't have PJ Washington was their center. 6'7". You know what Cat does as a 7-footer? He's standing on the outside of the three-point line, still jacking up threes. Charles Barkley said, if you don't get your big, soft ass down on that block and take that little 6'7" kid down there and score on him, and you're out there jacking up fucking threes. Why?
Listen.
He is small.
If Hakeem Olajuwon was playing in the NBA today, and he was, as tall as he is, over 7 foot, shooting jumpers today by today's standards, and he can still drive in the basket, what's that big fella going to do? He going to take the brother down there in the paint and soften him up like butter.
Centers these days just want to jack up threes and shoot and this.
What did Jokic do against Gobert? He took his ass in the paint and owned him.
We get Steph Curry changed the game, but damn, you're not Steph Curry, you big 7-foot kitty. Get down there and back his little ass down and score.
7 foot. 7-foot kitty.
Nothing but cottonelle soft tissue. Take his big ass down there and score on him. He's 7 foot. You got 6'7" guarding you. Get your big ass down in the block and create some shots. Instead, you're standing on the wing and hoping somebody passes it to you so he can jack up another clank. He built a fucking mansion full of bricks in this series, and he's still shooting. And
Who's building bricks on the? Who's building bricks? Oh, it's this big ass kitty. That's who it is.
Listen, Karl Anthony Towns cannot be a second best player on a team for a championship team. There's no way. He's too inconsistent. He's too soft. He's jacking up threes. Obviously, you see what happened. I mean, the Timberwolves need to go get a guy like a Donovan Mitchell, someone who can. Anthony Edwards is tired. Give me the ball. Let me work. Let me score. Same way Kyrie and Luka's doing. Need to go inquire about Kevin Durant. Maybe he want to come up there. Hey, let me score. I mean, we know how Kevin Durant is. He likes to get beat by teams and then join the same team that beats him the next year. So maybe he wants to join Minnesota.
Right.
I mean, then you got Kevin Durant that can score and give Anthony Edwards a break. I mean, if they get another offensive player, and that's the problem. That's the big key in these games. Dallas is winning. You know why? Dallas is winning because they're making the plays when it matters. The Timberwolves are not. I mean, Dallas has got two closers. Dallas has got a damn Mariano Rivera and a Dennis Eckersley on the same fucking team, essentially. Like, literally two closing pitchers. Like, they're going to shut the game out in this. That's what they got. Minnesota don't. They got a guy who's gassed because he's played 47 and a half minutes. His legs are shot, and he's out there settling for threes and bricking everything, and then Cat down there takes his big-ass shooting threes. So, they don't have a closer.
And Nas Reed, I thought he was the sixth man of the year. He played like it in game 2.
Oh, he is. He balled his ass out, and that's the thing. Edwards has been struggling because he's gassed. The players that's been keeping them in the game have been the role players. Nas Reed, the last couple games. Jaden McDaniels, the first game, had 25. Shot threes like he's fucking Klay Thompson. Them guys have been keeping them close.
And then Nas Reed in game 2 had 7 threes.
And what's been another biggest difference, and I'll be done with my rant, coaching. Jason Kidd is coaching circles around Finch, and maybe it's the stage. Maybe Finch don't know what the fuck he's got going on because it's the biggest stage. Jason Kidd's played on the biggest stage. He's coached on the biggest stage. He's been a part of the biggest stage.
He's won on the biggest stage.
And you want to get Edwards some rest, you know what you do? Do what Jason Kidd did. 3 minutes to go in the game, you know what he did? He takes Luka Doncic out for a defensive possession. When the defensive possession's over, he puts Doncic back in to play offense. Simple.
Another thing to add to that, Kev, the Celtics did the same thing.
They did it too. Yes, they did it last
Tatum.
night. They took Tatum out, and then when he got back on offense, they called it their last timeout because, again, you talk about the Pacers. Use it or lose it timeouts. Why are you leaving timeouts on the board? Use your timeouts. Call it timeout.
You can't take them with them.
Roster in there. And you know what? That's the greatest thing I've seen Jason Kidd do. Game was tied. Game 3. Game was tied down the stretch. You know what he did? He put an all defensive front court on the floor. He put Galford, PJ, Derrick Jones Jr., and a couple other guys and took Kyrie and Luka both out. And you know what? They got to stop. And once they got to stop, Jason Kidd, timeout. Get Kyrie and Luka in. Luka comes in and Kyrie makes a shot. They go up. They run away with it. That's strategic. That's coaching. But then you're Minnesota. Again, you go back to the game 2 blunder where why the fuck is Rudy Gobert even in the game at this point? Like, if you plan on switching, what is their strategy? What was the coach thinking? Like, oh, we're going to switch everything. Maybe I should take Gobert out. Nope, I'm going to leave Gobert in. And he gets burnt. Or, why not? Luke is so damn good. Here's an idea. Let's trap him. Let's send a blitz. Let's make him pass it to Daniel Galford and make fucking Daniel Galford make a driving play. At least a 2-pointer. Worst case, a guy who's normally not known for making plays makes a shot to tie the game.
Exactly, Kev, because Chris Finch's game plan should have been, let's get the ball out of Luka's hands because we see that he's trying to go to that 3-point line and get that 3-point off.
How many guys are going to run around the screen with Steph Curry out there and just let him play one-on-one, get an open 3? Nobody. So why are you sitting there not blitzing Luka after the pick and roll? Blitz him with the help defender, which was Gobert. He should have blitzed. Make Luka get the ball out. Get it to Daniel Galford, who was the guy who set the screen, or Derek Lively, one of the two. Make them make the play. They can't shoot, so worst place they're going to do is make a layup.
And also as well, if you're gonna let somebody shoot a three-pointer, don't let it be Kyrie or Luka or PJ Washington. Let it be Daniel. Let it be Derrick Jones.
Yes.
Or
Make them
any
shoot it.
other
Make someone
players.
else beat you. Like, tip your hat to them if they win. I mean, I know they've been knocking down shots, but you
But
can't
don't let it
let
be
the
the best
known
players.
player beat you. I mean, Jesus Christ. I've seen times where Kobe hasn't beat people that they made the Lakers take other shots. That's how they should have played it.
Yep.
Like anybody but Luka. And then you double Kyrie. Anybody but them two. Make any of the other three on the floor hit a shot, make a dunk. Worst case, a guy gets an open layup, still a tie ball game. You're going to overtime. But that's not even half of it. Like he's getting coached, he's getting circles coached around him by Jason Kidd, dude. What's another one? Oh, Anthony Edwards. Listen, I love his confidence. I love his swagger. He really is going to be the future of the league. Like, I like him saying, I want Kyrie. I like as a competitor, I like that. However, if you're the coach, you can't physically let him go guard Kyrie because you're going to get an Anthony Edwards that you're getting now. His legs are fucking gassed. You know why? Because he's chasing a fucking ball handler that has 6 skill around half the game. Get him off of Kyrie.
And he's been around for what, 11, 12 years, Kyrie has?
You got all of these defensive guards, Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley. Why are you letting Edwards start? I get he wants to be competitive and I want to take the challenge, but dude, that's my best offensive player. I need him to rest on defense. Like, go guard PJ Washington. All he does is stand in the corner and spot up. That way Edwards don't have to move and his knees are rest. Like, he's ready. He's rested. He don't have to exploit a bunch of fucking time on defense. Let Mike Conley get Kyrie. Let Jaden McDaniels get Luka, and you just chill over on PJ Washington. You just chill, basically, because that's all PJ does. Stand in the corner, wait for the defense to collapse and shoots. He don't drive.
And
He's
to add to that too, Kev,
shooter.
as far as the blundering game too, when it comes to that switching play, you could have had Mike Conley switch on him. You could have had any other player besides Gobert switch on him that is a defensive-minded player first to put their hands up and guard that shot to change maybe the trajectory of the shot.
Yeah, someone that was quicker because you know what? Gobert is the DP of the year. You know what that stands for? The dancing player of the year, because that's all he was doing was out there dancing. Luka had him looking like he was on roller skates. I mean, and we've seen this before. I don't know if you remember, but 2018, 2019 Western Conference semis with Golden State and the Utah Jazz, and Gobert was out there trying to get Curry, and Curry went left, he went right, he went behind the back. Gobert turned in circles. Gobert flipped, did a cartwheel, and then Curry had a layup. We should have known it was coming. Luka's faster than him. Jesus Christ. And they still just let him play.
It's crazy.
I don't get it, man. The coaching is horrible. Like, this is a learning experience for Minnesota. They will be back. They're going to be a young team. But so is the Oklahoma City Thunder. So is Dallas. Like, the West is tough, man.
I think the Timberwolves needed this slice of humble pie because you got so confident beating Denver on the road in Game 7, and then you show up to this series against Dallas. And again, like we said, all three of us have agreed, it's been a competitive series. But you got to show up when it matters the most and get it done. Make adjustments.
Close the game.
Close it. You had a double-digit lead on your home floor in Game 2, and you blew that. You let Dallas get back in the game. You keep letting Kyrie and Luka get off shots. Eventually, they're going to fall down. And then they took the bull by the horns and won that game. And then in Game 3, it was competitive the entire game. And then, like you said, Kevin, like we talked about this too, Joey, you had Luka and Kyrie at points during that game in Game 3 were taking rest. They were not playing the entire duration of the game. They were playing significant minutes, obviously, but they weren't playing 47, 48 minutes the entire game, basically.
Jason Kidd knows, and I guess that's the reason. That's a good thing of being a player's coach, a guy who's been through it before. There are cheap ways in a game to get your stars rest without sending them to the bench. Or both. You could send them to the bench for a defensive possession because, Jesus Christ, Kyrie and Luka ain't playing no damn defense. That's two of the worst defenders they got. And so Jason Kidd's like, I'm going to use it to my advantage. Here, go get you a breather. Go get some water. We're about to send somebody in, make a stop. then you're going to come back in the game. I've seen it multiple times, people doing it. Boston, like you said, doing it, and other reasons. Put them on the worst players. Like, Jesus Christ, like, if you don't see Kyrie over there guarding Anthony Edwards. I mean, I know he ain't defensively good, but Kyrie's over there guarding people who don't score, so he don't have to exert a lot of them energy. He can just basically chill on defense.
Williams says here in the chat he feels bad for Conley. He doesn't deserve this. No, he does not, because Conley has been around the league for years.
Yeah, I hate it for Conley, but yeah, I don't think he is a piece for them to win, though. I hate it for him, but because like we said, they need another scorer, but who is that scorer going to replace? He can't replace Jaden McDaniels. Jaden McDaniels is elite defensively. I mean, if you plan on replacing Gobert, maybe, I don't know, but you need to figure it out, because Cat and Gobert, I don't think it's going to work.
If Cat keeps going down the road, he's going to send his big ass back to the litter box.
I don't get it.
Seriously. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean,
went from thinking he's dirt to looking like Shaq, shooting a free throw.
He can't even shoot his way out of a paper bag right now. Just you keep shooting threes. Brick, 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 brick. Dude, stop.
Just like Draymond said, they had made the comment about the free throw disparity, talking about, well, Dallas got more free throws. You know what Draymond said? He said, well, of fucking course, they're not settling for threes. You idiots are out there fucking settling for jump shots. Of course you're not going to go to the line. Why don't you be aggressive and take it to the rim? Get fouled. Make them put the game in the rest.
If you got Luka and Kyrie on you and you're a big 7-footer, take them to the basket.
That's what Draymond said. He's like, listen, as bad as Kyrie and Luka are on defense, why the fuck is the coach not on the offensive end of the floor exploiting switches with Luka? He can't guard nobody. I remember in 2022 in the West Finals, they would switch. Golden State is a good example. They would switch every time to get Luka on Steph Curry. You know why? Steph cooked him. He can't play. He can't guard nobody. That's not going to win you games when you just let Luka and Kyrie rest on defense. That's another thing. They're resting because the other team, Minnesota's not attacking them on offense. So they get to stand in the corner and rest their legs while everybody else is playing, and then they get the ball back, and then they're fresh. Make them play defense. Switch them. I'm taking Luka's guy, and I'm saying, come set me a pick. I want Luka on me. I'm going to make him work, and then let's see how much gas he's got when he gets the ball. Golden State did that against Luka, and Luka basically looked piss poor at the end. He couldn't shoot.
Did. They exposed him.
He was gassed. That's how you use somebody. That's how you take advantage of somebody. We've seen Cleveland do it to Golden State with Steph Curry. They put Steph Curry in the pick and rolls with LeBron, exerted him where he couldn't shoot in Game 7 of the finals. Yep. It happens. That's coaching. That's good coaching. Minnesota's not doing it. Not at all.
Nope. And it's like to me, and I'll ask you this, Joey, when it comes to Minnesota, do you think that Minnesota's goal was to beat the big bad Nuggets and knock them off their throne? Because it seems to me that Minnesota has lost the big picture, and that's closing games against Dallas, because their whole mindset was to beat Denver, and now it's like they've forgotten where they are, because you got to play all 48 minutes and close the deal, close the door.
Minnesota has definitely lost the big picture here, and let me tell you why. Going into that series against Denver, Minnesota, I wouldn't say they were scared. I would say they were kind of concerned. Concerned at the fact that they were playing such a high-profile team who had just won the NBA championship last year, and Minnesota, they were like, well, I mean, if anybody can knock them off their pedestal, I mean, we can try our best, seeing as how great of a season we had this year. And I get it. I get the fact that you have a team like the Denver Nuggets who have great players that play all over the year, such as Jokic, Murray, Gordon. I get it. You got those players that can play their hearts out night in and night out, day in and day out. But Minnesota, they knew that going into these playoffs that they were going to be, I guess you could say, the underdogs. They knew they were going to be the underdogs because, yes, they finished with the exact same record as the Thunder and the Nuggets. But because of the way the tiebreaker went, Minnesota got the number 3 seed, which a lot of people don't really consider to be the underdogs, but when you look at such a young team like the OKC Thunder and such a talented team like the Denver Nuggets, I get the fact that Minnesota seemed a little bit on the concern side. But after winning the first 2 games in Denver, pretty much knocking them off their pedestal, Minnesota players were like, okay, we've taken the first 2 games here and not on our home floor. We took these first 2 games on Denver's home court. And it's pretty much almost impossible to beat such a high-profile team like Denver on their home court and expect us not to have a little bit of respect. So, going on games 3, 4, 5, 6, it was tied 3-3, and Minnesota was like, okay, this is our chance. Nobody expected us to play the Nuggets this well. Let's go out and show these teams and these fans what we're made of. And they went out and got the job done, beating them in 7 games, defeating the defending national champions. But that's when the problems started. Minnesota got too high of a hothead, saying, oh my gosh, we defeated the Denver Nuggets. We knocked the defending national champions out of the playoffs. And I get the fact that Minnesota was on a hot streak there, seeing as how they did beat the defending national champions. But it wasn't the NBA Finals. It was the Western Conference. You still have 2 more series to go, and Minnesota was riding that hot hand all the way to that Game 7 win, but come Game 1, Minnesota didn't seem to have it. They did for a while, but Dallas, like I mentioned earlier, the game-ending mistakes. We have seen Minnesota make game-ending mistakes in all 3 games in this conference finals.
Yep.
And Dallas has capitalized on all those mistakes. And that is why Dallas is ahead 3-0 with a chance to sweep tonight. Now, do I say that Minnesota is a bad team? Absolutely not.
No.
Minnesota is not a bad team at all. They just need help. They need just a little bit of help, especially down there in the paint, because like we've gone to say, Rudy Gobert is a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner, but yet he doesn't really play defense other than block the occasional layup or block the occasional 5-foot, 10-foot shot. I mean, that's not playing defense. Playing defense is doing everything you can to prevent the other team from scoring, whether it's getting a steal from the three-point line, blocking a three-pointer. I mean, just doing whatever you can to throw the other team off their game. But that's not what Minnesota is doing here. I mean, if you would have asked Luka and Kyrie before Game 1, I'm willing to bet you that both players said something along the lines of, we don't care what's going to happen in these playoffs, or we don't care what's going to happen in this series. What we care about is we're going to go out there and play the game that we know how to play. And that is exactly what Luka and Kyrie are doing right now. Yes, I wouldn't say they're getting too much of a hot head right now, seeing as how they're up 3-0 with a chance to sweep tonight. But if I'm Coach Jason Kidd, I would be telling these players, listen, we're up 3-0. We have a chance to sweep tonight. We have a chance to go to the NBA Finals. This is not the time to slack off. You guys have played so well these first 3 games, knocking Minnesota off their game, and tonight here in Game 4, it does not need to be any different. Dallas has had advantage after advantage after advantage in this series, and tonight the time that Dallas needs to play off the wayside.
Good point by
Because,
William here in
like
the
you
chat. He said
mentioned,
Gobert is not a threat on offensive either. That is true.
No, he's not. He's
Yeah.
not. But like you said, Steven, Minnesota, they are still having a teensy little tiny bit of hope left because they were the ones to knock out Denver. But if Dallas starts making mistakes and Minnesota starts capitalizing, we could be in for a much longer series than what needs to be. Because if Dallas gives Minnesota just a little teensy bit of life, Minnesota's going to jump on them. So
Exactly. If they
If
win one
I'm Kyrie,
tonight,
if I'm Derek Lively, if I'm anybody on that Dallas Mavericks lineup, I am taking advantage early and dominating the first half. Dominate the first half. Because that is one way to beat Minnesota. Get them off their game early and dominate when the time is right. And tonight, for all 48 minutes, the time will be right for Dallas to go in there, completely knock Minnesota off their game once again, and finish off Minnesota with a sweep on their home court.
now let me ask you guys this. I was just thinking about this as you guys were speaking about this team. They kind of remind me of the 2018 Houston Rockets.
Listen, this is why I was exactly getting to that. Listen, the league is about matchups. This team, just like Udonis Haslem, former Miami Heat great Hall of Famer eventually, at least for Miami, he said it best on ESPN today. The league's about matchups. And that team was designed to beat Denver. It wasn't designed to beat Dallas. It wasn't it wasn't designed to beat that style of play. This team was built to beat the Denver Nuggets. It was built to stop a Nikola Jokic from doing what he wants. That's Denver's core is Jokic. Nobody out west has that type of core though. Like a center that's your point guard, a center that makes all the off-script plays. However, Dallas has got the point guard that does that, and that's a problem to Minnesota. They don't match up well with that type of play. They're twin 7-foot twin towers everywhere. They're meant to stop the paint. Denver scores in the paint. Dallas shoots threes. There's a difference. When you can't play that type of way, you don't match up well. Just like the Rockets were built to beat the Warriors, even though they didn't. That is the type of team Minnesota is. They're built to beat Denver. However, they drew the Mavericks, and that's a bad matchup. Because I promise you one thing, like Udonis Haslem said, if Denver would have got my Minnesota, Denver would have beat Dallas. I have no doubt in my mind about it. All respect.
Absolutely, they would have beaten Dallas.
Denver is a bad matchup for Dallas because of Nikola Jokic. However, Minnesota was a bad matchup for Denver because of the way it fell. And because of the way it fell, Dallas looked up. They get Minnesota. They don't have to deal with 3-time MVP Nikola Jokic, and they drew a good matchup. And that's how the NBA is, man. You get the matchups you want. You got to exploit the matchups you want. And they drew it, and that's what happened. But anyway, guys, I'm about to hop off here and get ready to get my youngin to bed.
All right, Kev.
But I'll holler at y'all guys. Good seeing y'all. Good talking these sports with you.
Yes,
Good
sir.
talking Eastern and Western Conference Finals, and let's get ready for some NBA Finals here next Thursday. Y'all have a good one.
Absolutely,
See you, brother.
Absolutely. Real quick, one day soon, the three of us need to get together again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just let me know. I'm always open.
Got you, man. We got you.
Y'all have a good one.
You too, man.
All right, Kev. Peace
Great
out,
job,
bro.
dude. That was awesome having the one and only Kevin Roy back on the show for a solid hour, just talking about his thoughts on the conference finals. And, I was just thinking about that because when you look at the grand scheme of things, the Timberwolves remind me of that Rockets team because they were only designed to beat one team in Denver.
Yeah,
just like the Rockets were only designed to beat Golden State, but they didn't.
That's true.
And William also said it here in the chat as well that Denver took it out of the Timberwolves. They did.
They did. I mean, they may have ended up on the losing end, but like we talked about on the phone just the other day, Nikola Jokic, he was like, yeah, you guys beat us. You guys knocked us out of the playoffs. But we also wore you guys out. So you may have won the battle, but you're going to lose the war.
Exactly.
And I
And
believe that wholeheartedly.
in game 4 of the Western Conference Finals is getting underway as of right now here in about a couple of minutes.
Yep.
And this game tonight is so interesting because I just keep going to the what if scenario because I do think eventually Dallas will win this series. But I also keep thinking in the back of my head, I'm thinking that the Timberwolves, if you give this team a slimmer chance of life, if they win tonight, game 5 is on their home floor. And if Timberwolves win that game, oh boy, this could get interesting.
Oh, it's definitely going to get interesting because as of about 35 minutes ago, the Dallas Mavericks have officially ruled out center Derek Lively out of tonight's game because of a sprained neck he suffered in game 3.
Yep, after taking that unnecessary shot to the back of the head, thanks to that Hello Kitty, Carl Anthony Towns. Yet again, another great one-liner by Kevin on the show.
Yeah, almost
He's
like
not
CD
playing like a
Lamb,
top
CD
player. He's
the
playing like
ball.
a Hello Kitty.
Yes.
But it's interesting with the conference finals. Pretty much in the books, except for one game for the Mavericks. No team in NBA history has came back trailing 3-0 to win a series. If the Mavericks,
Four teams have forced to game 7, but all 4 teams have lost.
yep. And if you're the Mavericks, you cannot give the Timberwolves any slim chance of life. You have to win tonight. You have to.
You have to.
You do not want to play extra games because that could play into the Celtics' hands.
Yes, it could.
You cannot have extra games if you're the Mavericks. Just like the Celtics, you need to win this game tonight to get rest.
But yes, in just under half an hour, Minnesota and Dallas will be tipping off for game number 4.
Going to be interesting. Now, switching over, I know, Joey, you talked about this, how you wanted to talk about a little bit of NFL and MLB, but let's switch over to baseball real quick because I know there was a huge story, unfortunately, for your Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, before we go into that, there is one small little piece of NBA news that we need to cover just a little bit, and that is the story that has been dominating the headlines as of yesterday morning, and that is the fact that former NBA player, former commentator for both NBA and college sports, the one and only Bill Walton, has passed away after a battle with cancer at the age of 71.
Bill Walton was one of the greatest players and an even better commentator because I love the way.
Yes, he was.
Now, I wasn't familiar with Walton's playing because I never was around during his playing career. However, I was around during his broadcasting career. And just the way he carried himself in the booth or during a pregame or during a studio show. Bill Walton was a treasure. He was a hoot when it comes to being in front of a camera on the microphone because he could take, and Dave Pasch said this on ESPN yesterday after game 4 between the Celtics and the Pacers. Dave said that Bill could take a script and rip it up just like that because
yes, he could.
Walton could be speaking on something for 5-7 minutes and that could be almost the equivalent of 2 segments already. And just the way he was so off the cuff and the way he did things his own way. He wasn't the prototypical, studio guy or commentator guy. He was his own entity, and that's what I loved about Bill Walton's career as a commentator. because he brought so much knowledge and so much charisma into the game of basketball. And he was one of the best players in the NBA, won 2 championships with the Portland Trailblazers in 1978 and that great Boston Celtics team in 1986. And the Celtics yesterday and the NBA world yesterday was paying a lot of great tributes, and how great it was for the Celtics to win that game, paying tribute to him on the day that he passed.
Yes, and Rick Carlisle actually has quite a lot of history with Bill
Yes,
Walton.
he does. He won the championship with Walton.
Yes, he did, because Rick Carlisle and Bill Walton were teammates.
Yep, and they were really close friends.
As was Bill Walton and Larry Bird. They were teammates, and also that awesome post that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar put on his social media in regards to Bill Walton, saying that one of his best friends and one of his best rivals has left this earth. And I'm just like, Bill Walton, the guy was a legend. Not just on the court, but on the sidelines as well. Because like you said, Steven, he took commentary and just completely turned it around 360 degrees. It didn't matter what he did. Bill Walton brought life to the broadcasting booth. He brought life to it.
And I think that's what a lot of today's announcers are missing today. Is they're missing that charisma. They're missing that intensity. They're missing that pizzazz, in the booth. And the play-by-play guys that the NBA has always had have always been very solid and very great, such as, the great Marv Albert or Kevin Harlan, who's still doing it well, still out there all these years. And Mike Breen and Dave Pasch on ESPN. And obviously when he was there, Mike Tirico was great. Right. So the play-by-play guys they've had over the years have always been great. But those color guys, those are who you rely on, to bring the color into the game when it comes to the character and being great, and all that type of stuff, and charisma and stuff. And that's what Walton had. He had the gift, the gab. He had the intensity. He had just a great presence about himself when he was in the booth. When the NBA and the entire sports landscape lost a true legend of the sports world, and everybody was paying tribute to him, and rightly so. And from all of us here on the sports show, we would like to send our condolences to the family and friends of Bill Walton and all of those that are grieving during this difficult time, and rest in peace.
And not to mention also, Bill Walton was also one of the few players to play for the most famous Wizard of Westwood, that of course being John Wooden.
Yep.
Yeah, he was one of the few players to play for him.
And he had success.
Yes, he did.
And Jaylen Brown talked about Bill Walton last night, talking about how every time when Bill would be up there calling games at Cal Berkeley, he would be down there talking to Bill and, and just asking him questions and just talking to him about the game, and just everybody that was around Bill. He made time for everybody. The young players in the NBA. It
didn't matter who you were.
The veterans, anybody. He was great. He was a great person. And he left a legacy on this planet that will stand forever in the test of times. Because if you want to be a great person to society, look at Bill Walton's legacy that he left on this planet Earth. He carved out a legacy that will live on in everybody's hearts. Whether you knew him personally or you looked up to his work as a basketball player and as an analyst, as a studio analyst, as a game analyst, being in the arena, calling the games, and bringing his knowledge to the game of basketball. And just what a legend.
Absolutely, what a living legend.
Now, I know there were some things that you wanted to talk about the NFL and the MLB, and I want to switch gears to the MLB side of things because as of yesterday, there was a tragic news story with your Atlanta Braves, a heartbreaking injury once again to the same
Indeed.
exact player.
Indeed, for the second time in 3 years, Braves star outfielder Ronald Acuna Jr. has tore his ACL. Only this time, it's in his other knee. In 2021, he tore it in his right knee. This time, he tore it in his left knee.
And the Braves went
Because
on
of
to win the
that,
World Series that year.
because of that, he is going to miss the rest of the 2024 season, which is yet another crushing blow since we've already lost Spencer Strider to Tommy John surgery this year. So the Braves are falling apart. Now, granted, the last time Ronald Acuna did tear his ACL, Atlanta won the World Series. But that was also because general manager Alex Anthopoulos went out and got some help at the trade deadline. So unless Alex can pull another rabbit out of his hat, and unless the Phillies can actually cool down a little bit, I don't think we're going to be seeing the same success in Atlanta this year as we did in 2021, but I digress. I could be proven wrong, and I hope to God I am.
It's a heartbreaking injury. It happens, and it's unfortunate because your Braves have been struggling. I mean, the injuries continue to pile up, and you can't keep losing multiple games because that puts you behind several games out of 500 and stuff like that. And it's crazy. I mean, all the expectations that Atlanta had going into this season, and the injuries just continue to pile up, and anything that goes wrong has gone wrong. It continues to go wrong for Atlanta.
Yeah. I just hope we can pick it up sooner rather than later.
You never know, because like you said, in 21, they took a negative thing, turned it around, and they made a run, and they made it to the World Series, and they beat the Astros in 6 games.
Yes, we did.
And that was an incredible accomplishment for that city in 21, and just I hope that he can recover for next year and play next season. I mean, that's just it sucks. When you see your great player go down with an injury like that. Now, as far as the NFL is concerned, what's the one thing you want to talk about?
Well, there is a story that broke just a little bit ago. Let me pull it up on the ESPN app here. So give me just a second to take a look. And that is the fact that one of the star receivers, not Tank Dell, for the Houston Texans, got paid. Wide receiver Nico Collins, after stepping up his game after Tank Dell went down with that injury last year, has agreed to a 3-year, $72.75 million extension that includes $52 million guaranteed.
Woo! He got paid.
He got paid big time.
Yes, he did.
I mean, but see, like all the other players out there that earn these big money contracts, he has proven it. Because he had a career best season last year, finishing with 80 receptions for 3 yards shy of 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns in 15 games. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And also, Collins was scheduled to become an unrestricted free agent after this season. So Houston was like, listen, Nico, we want to keep you around in the blue and red, so we're signing you to an extension. What do you have to say to that? And all he had to say was, where do I sign, coach?
Pretty much.
Where do I sign?
Pretty much.
Because, CJ Stroud is now going to have, if we thought his rookie year was amazing, let's put it into concept of what he might do here in his second season. Because not only does he have his receivers, Tank Dell and Nico Collins, to throw to, but he also has one of the best receivers in the game right now in Stephon Diggs to throw to.
Mm-hmm.
So one can only imagine what CJ Stroud is going to do here in year number 2. One can only imagine.
And it's hard to believe, but we're almost in the month of June, and we are inching so close to the NFL season beginning once again. And when that happens, we're going to be revving up for our fall coverage of the NFL season for 24. It's going to be insane. It's going to be great.
Absolutely insane.
And I mean, if you're Nico Collins, if you're the Houston Texans, you're on cloud 9 today, because he signed a good contract that's going to keep him around for a little bit more time. And Houston can make a run this year. I think they can.
Oh, yeah.
The AFC, without a doubt, is the best conference. You got Baltimore with Lamar and Derrick Henry. You got, obviously, the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and company. You got, obviously, the Bengals with Burrow and Jamar Chase still there. You got the Texans and that young regime down there. And it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, and in light of a story that we talked about at the beginning of last year, in which the Buffalo Bills punter Araiza was accused of like some sort of sexual assault, once again another kicker has found his way into a couple of lawsuits. Former Jacksonville Jaguars kicker and current Washington Commanders kicker Brandon McManus has been accused of 2 separate cases of sexual assault whenever Jacksonville, by a couple of flight attendants who said that McManus was coming on to them as the Jaguars were flying to London to play their share of back-to-back games last year.
That's not good. Not good.
So, yeah, they're seeking. Apparently, these 2 flight attendants, they are seeking excess of $1 million and are demanding a jury trial.
Yep.
So,
Can't be doing that stuff. Not good.
Nope.
Not good.
Let me see. I'm trying to see if there's any other.
We are about 11 minutes away from tip-off?
Yeah, pretty much 11 minutes away. Yep. And let's see. And Cincinnati is reportedly beginning OTAs without T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, which is kind of a big storyline. Let's see. The NHL playoffs are still underway, and Game 4 between the Rangers and Panthers has actually just now started.
Yep.
Let's see.
And Rangers lead that series 2-1.
Let's see if there's any other. Here's a couple of baseball scores right now. At the bottom of the 6th, with the bases loaded, the Red Sox are on top of the Orioles 4-3. Top of the 7th, Cardinals are on top 5-1 over the Reds. The Athletics are on top of the Rays 3-0 here at the bottom of the 6th. Scoreless tie between the Nationals and the Braves as we're in the top of the 5th. Cubs on top of the Brew Crew 1-0 in the top of the 4th. Twins on top 2-0 over the Royals in the top of the 3rd. Game 2 of a doubleheader between the Dodgers and the Mets. The Dodgers are on top 2-0 in the top of the 3rd. Scoreless tie as the Blue Jays and the White Sox have just started. Scoreless tie at the end of the 1st inning between the D-backs and the Rangers. And the Dodgers actually won Game 1 of this tie of this doubleheader, beating the Mets in 10 innings 5-2.
Oh boy, and they still got another game to play.
Yep, coming up later tonight. Here in just a little bit, we're going to have the Cleveland Guardians and the Colorado Rockies. And then, of course, later on tonight, we're going to have the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Angels, the Houston Astros against the Seattle Mariners, and to finish off, the Miami Marlins against the San Diego Padres. And to finish off the nightcap, the Philadelphia Phillies out west in the Bay Area taking on the San Francisco Giants.
And the Philadelphia Phillies, as you just mentioned, are one of the hottest teams in baseball right now.
Yep. Oh, speaking of which, I'm sure that if I am a certain handful of players that has dealt with this umpire, I'm sure that they are celebrating to high heavens because MLB umpire Angel Hernandez is officially calling it a career in regards to being an umpire.
Yeah, because he knows his shenanigans, his controversy calls have him in hot water.
Yep. So he has decided to hang it up and call it a career.
So I guess Mr. Hernandez, if you can't take the heat, get out the kitchen, and he did finally.
Yep.
It almost makes me wonder why did Bill Levy not do that for the NFL? Just saying. Too little, too late.
Oh, don't tell me you went there, sir.
Yes, I did.
Wow.
Super Bowl 40. Seahawks, Pittsburgh. Yeah. Controversy. Ugh. Those calls were so bad even a blind man saw them.
Yeah.
And that was before I went blind. So I still saw it. Anyways, so yeah, the game is tipping off here in a little bit, in a few minutes actually, in about
5 minutes.
Yeah, about 5 minutes. Yep. And as far as tonight goes, I mean, if I'm the Timberwolves, you got to win this game. You obviously you have to win this game. But if you're going to win this game, you have to manage the game if it's a close game. Because the one thing, if you're the Timberwolves, you can't continue to get out-coached and outclassed by Jason Kidd and Luka and Kyrie and everybody. Because not only are the stars in Dallas rolling, but the role players in Dallas are rolling as well. And I know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, if the Boston Celtics face the Mavericks in the finals, you're not going to see the Celtics disrespecting the players in Dallas. It's going to be a best of 7 who wins the series, best team wins. Yet you got a young team in Minnesota who's cocky, and it's biting them.
Especially since there's going to be some homecomings for a couple players, because if we come out to having Boston and Dallas in the NBA Finals, it's going to feature some returns, such as Kyrie Irving going back to Boston, and once he comes back and stays healthy, then Kristaps Porzingis will be going back to Dallas.
It's amazing. It's crazy how this is all working out, and I think that this is to me the more competitive series than Minnesota. I'm sorry, because Minnesota again is a young team. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, Minnesota, they have great young players, but they don't have the depth. They don't have the experience. They don't have a coach who has been there. Jason Kidd has been there. Jason Kidd's been to 3 NBA Finals as a player, and he's won a championship.
That's right.
He took the Mavericks to the Western Conference Finals a couple years ago.
He also got swept in one of his NBA Finals appearances. But come on, that 0-2 Lakers team was deadly.
Forget about it. Yep, that Lakers team was so good, and they three-peated that year.
Yes, they did.
So
after beating the Pacers, the Sixers, and the Nets in consecutive years.
Yep. And tonight, if you're Luka, if you're Kyrie, continue to do what you're doing. The role players continue to do what you're doing, and you're going to take this game.
Absolutely.
And if you're Minnesota, you got to get tonight, because if you get tonight, that's where things could get very interesting.
Yes, they could.
So,
But see,
with that being said,
it all goes back to what we've been saying all along. No lead is safe.
just like what Jason Tatum said on Saturday,
No lead is safe.
and what's crazy, Joey, going back to the Pacers and Celtics series, it's amazing how in 3 out of these 4 games, Indiana leading in these games, their win probability in all 3 games was 90 or above.
But yet, Coach Rick Carlisle, once again, I mean, you're a good head coach, but at the same time, if you have timeouts in the back of your pocket with a few seconds left in the game, use them. Use them.
You can't take them with you. I can't get over game 1. And especially I can't get over game 3. Because you're telling them to play. You're telling them to play when you don't have a clear star player to call an audible like Denver does with Jokic and Murray. And yeah, play on. And then Drew Holiday saw the ball and goes, I see he's driving. I got an angle on him. I'm going to take the ball from him. Grand Theft Auto style. Just took the ball, ran with it, 2 free throws. And that game is insane to me. You're leading by 18 in your building, and you blew the lead.
I'm telling you, Drew Holiday is a defensive stud.
And if anybody can guard Luka and Kyrie, it's Drew.
Agreed.
Because, see, here's the difference between Minnesota and Boston. Unlike Minnesota, Boston has 2 guards who can play stout defense. And Derek White and Drew Holiday.
Agreed.
And I don't think Minnesota has the capabilities of stopping these guys. Because you pissed off a sleeping team. You pissed off Kyrie. Oh, I want Kyrie. Oh, you're getting Kyrie. You are.
Yeah, you're getting the best side of Kyrie.
You don't want to tug on. There's 2 things you don't do: tug on Superman's cape and tug on Uncle Drew.
That's right. I forgot.
Because Kyrie is schooling Anthony Edwards.
Absolutely schooling him.
And as far as tonight goes, what do you think happens, Joey? Are we seeing the end of this series and we're seeing a clear-cut Mavericks-Celtics finals? Or are we going back to Minnesota for Game 5 and things could get interesting?
That is a very interesting thought because, my gosh, tonight's Game 4 could go either way. But what it all comes down to is which team of Minnesota is going to show up. Is it going to be the team that knocked off Denver in Game 7 that looked absolutely dynamite from the field? Or is this going to be the Minnesota team that we've seen here in the first 3 games that has done absolutely nothing with this Dallas Mavericks team?
Or, Joey, are we going to see, as far as Minnesota for this series, are we going to see the Minnesota team that had a double-digit lead in the first half of Game 2?
That's right.
Because you had an 18-point lead, just like the Pacers, on your home floor, and you blew it. Because if you get any of these great teams within shooting distance of getting back into the game, all you got to do is just go on a run, hit your baskets, and get stops on the defensive side of the ball.
Absolutely. So, with all that being said, I just got to say one thing. We've already seen one sweep, so you might as well go in and keep those broomsticks out because we're going to see another one. I'm going Dallas.
You know what? Part of me is wanting to see chaos, but a part of me thinks this series is clear-cut. It's done. I think the Mavericks are going to beat the Timberwolves as well in a close game.
I mean, all 3 of these games have been close. All 3 of these games have been competitive.
Again, if it comes down to coaching, if Chris Fitch and company were coaching a better game, it could be 2-1 Minnesota.
Could be.
It could be 3-0 Minnesota. That's why they play the games. That's why you have to play clutch minutes. Because the Celtics in their conference finals against Indiana, and 3 out of those 4 games, they were clutch.
Yes, they were.
In these 3 games in Dallas and Minnesota, no matter if it's at home or if it's been on the road, Dallas has been clutch.
Indeed, they have.
And I still laugh when Timberwolves fans in game 2, oh, Draymond sucks. Hey, that wasn't me. That was Luka. Barkley said, hey, y'all go home. We'll see you next year. Well, you don't win tonight. You are going home. Done. Eliminated. If you're Minnesota, you want to make some history? Win a damn game tonight. Win. Get the job done. Win tonight. You win tonight, you get game 5 on your home floor at the Target Center. And then it could get crazy.
Yes,
it only takes one game.
All it
one
takes.
game. One game at a time. Play every possession, every minute. Every offensive possession, every defensive series. Play every single minute of that game like it is your last. Because if you're the Timberwolves, you have to show up tonight and win. Because if you don't, you're going to be just like the Pacers. You're going to be packing your bags, taking your asses home, and watching the finals on the couch and joining the rest of the ball clubs that either got eliminated or didn't even qualify for the playoffs. And no matter what happens tonight, if Minnesota, Lakers, easy targets, and the Clippers, and Philadelphia, easy targets. Let me clear my throat. I got a fur ball. Is that cat? Is that Hello Kitty up my throat? I don't know, but anyway.
7-foot kitty.
Oh, God.
I mean, for one thing, it's fitting because the initials spell out K-A-T. And yes, I know that's not how you spell cat, but still, it's close. So it's fitting.
Pretty much. I mean, it's... And if you're Carl Anthony Towns, just show up and play like a big man. If you're not making nothing from the 3-point line, get to the paint.
I mean, seriously, Carl Anthony Towns is a 7-foot cat that coughs up fur balls, just like Anthony Davis is a 7-foot plastic toy that gets broken if you stare at him.
And it's like right now I'm listening to the radio broadcast of the game. And the color analyst, I didn't get his name, but the guy who's joining Dave Pash on commentary on the radio side of things, he said that Carl Anthony Towns is overthinking the game. Play your brand of basketball.
Yeah,
go inside. Go outside. You're a big man. If you're not making the jumpers,
utilize that big man ability.
Go into the paint.
Don't post up and shoot a 3-pointer. Shag.
Exactly.
Of course, granted, Shaq never shot a 3-pointer, but still. But I mean, if you use that big 7-foot body to really muscle down in there, then you may not make the shot all the time, but but you can easily knock down a few free throws.
Exactly. So we shall see what happens tonight. The
Indeed.
Game is getting ready to get underway. And anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
I think I'm good for the night.
I think I am too. Let's enjoy this basketball game. Again,
Oh,
folks,
yeah.
Again, folks, tonight, Game 4 at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas. It is Game 4 between the Dallas Mavericks to lead this series 3-0 against the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals. One more win for the Mavericks, and they go to their third NBA Finals in franchise history. Their first would be since 2011. And the game is getting underway. So with that being said, thank you to William for joining us here in the chat tonight, and to everybody that joins the show on demand and watches later on. Thank you very much. And thank you to Kevin for joining us here today on the top for an hour, giving us his analysis on these conference finals. And it's crazy how we're this close to the NBA season being over. And like we said, the NBA Finals get underway on June the 6th in Boston, Massachusetts at TD Bank North Garden, because the Celtics, as of yesterday, have been the first team to punch their ticket to the 2024 NBA Finals championship round, and they await their opponent. It will be either the Mavericks winning this series, or Minnesota could be the first team in NBA history trailing 3-0 to win a playoff series. Will it happen? We'll have to find out. That's why they play the games. You play to win the game, as the great Herm Edwards once said. And with that being said, it's been a great show with you guys. Like I said, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, or X as they call it these days, at Our Nation Sport, Owen_Sports Show, Facebook.com/Our Nation Sports Show, and where we are live on most Tuesdays, sometimes Wednesdays, or whenever the hell we go live. It's our YouTube.com/Our Nation Sports Show. And be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff with your family and friends who love the world of sports. And we will be back next week for the first episode of the sports show for the month of June, as we inch closer, a couple of months away from the NFL season getting underway. And obviously when the month of August comes around, that's when we start our divisional previews and all of that good stuff. And the game is getting underway right now. Let's enjoy this bad boy. So with that being said, for Ezra, who was not here today with us due to a family issue, and for KR Kevin Orr for joining us for the top of the hour, for the first hour, for JT Joey Thornton, I've been your host for this evening, Stephen Wyand. We thank you, everybody, for joining us here today for another edition of Our Nation Sports Show. Take care of each other. Be good to one another. And I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't bring this up. To everybody yesterday, happy Memorial Day. Hope you enjoyed your family and your friends over the weekend. I know I did. But the reason why we did this over the weekend is because of the brave men and women who sacrificed, who gave their lives to fight for our freedoms in this country. We wouldn't have the things we have today if it wasn't for these brave men and women. Because without them, our freedom isn't here. Because freedom isn't free. It comes with a price. And to the brave men and women who are serving today, God bless you. To the brave men and women who served and are no longer here with us, thank you for paving, the way of what it means to be the true American hero. You are the true heroes of this nation. God bless the USA. God bless you all. And hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the sports. Enjoy your time with your family and friends. And again, don't forget to follow the Nation's Corner on Twitter at Nation's Corner, Facebook.com/Nation's Corner, and on YouTube at YouTube.com/The Nation's Corner. Be sure to check out the guys and gals this Saturday as they recap all of the happenings in professional wrestling, including AEW Double or Nothing from Las Vegas this past Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, 4 p.m. Pacific time. And once again, like I said, for Ezra, for William Gyron, for Randy Gyron, for Kevin Roy, for JT Joey Thornton, I've been your host for this evening, Stephen Wyand. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. We'll see you next week. Peace.